Hello and welcome to the lab. This is Kel, and I'm with Cody and Seth. And we have a kind of a different topic today. We're going to stray a little bit from fitness and health and talk about masculinity and how it kind of shows up in our lives as trans men and just kind of in the world. But first, how are y'all today?
I am great. How
Cool,
about you,
guys.
Seth?
I'm good. It's can't complain. It's a Saturday. Well, I mean, I could complain because I had really great outdoor plans for this weekend, and the weather is shit. So that's cool for me. But on the bright side, I'm healthy and I slept good. So there are worse things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a plus.
How you doing, Cody?
Good. The weather's pretty nice here, so I'm happy about that. It's like perfect 70s. Not too hot, but not too cold. Um, yeah, it kind of feels like beach weather, so I'm happy. Other than that, nothing too exciting. I had my first posing session last Sunday after our, conversation. I talked about that. That went well. Um, and so now it's just 8 weeks or so from now, I'll be starting prep. So it'll be the first time that I've competed since 2020. So I'm just kind of been anxiously thinking about that. And it's funny, I'm not anxious about like the process. I'm just anxious that, you know, I should keep putting on more mass before I compete again. But there's like all these factors to consider, and one of them being that I'm old, and I'm like, I could keep pushing to put on mass, but what if I injure myself, and then there's more and more delay of getting on stage. So I've just been basically processing and arguing with myself for the majority of the week. But
That's
all right.
fun. I mean, but 8 weeks is you still got some time too. So
Yeah. So, we'll see. I mean, technically, I could get, halfway through a prep and then we could still see more of what my size is like. And then we could be like, you know what, actually, let's just keep building, which kind of sucks because you go through X amount of weeks of dieting. But I just feel like I kind of need to anyways. My hunger has been in the toilet. So I don't know that it'll be too rough in the beginning stages. But it's like, it's weird because it's conflicting. I'm excited to do this again, get on stage, improve my look, which I know I will, be bigger, but so does everyone else. So I'm just like, I really want to place better. I want to place at all. It's just hard because it's like prep is one of those, it's really hard, So it's to put yourself through months of pretty strenuous dieting with a busy schedule. You're like, yo, I really want to make sure that it's time and it's worth it, but won't know until I try.
yeah, and that's what you pay for someone for too, to help you with that kind of stuff. So
Hell yeah. I have to say though, when you said what if I get an injury, in X amount of time, like that stopped you before. Like, yeah, I feel like you could have, like, I don't know, both legs out and you'd be like, I think they got a division for me. And I believe in you, dude. Like, it's, you're going to get there. If it's not this time, it'll be soon enough. But yeah.
Yeah, I just think like I've been playing a little bit of Russian roulette with injuries the past year or so. So I'm kind of just like, something's going to give to the point where I'm going to have to really like take a step back. And so I'm just like, there's a little bit of urgency to get on the stage before anything falls apart.
Yeah, I know Des is probably listening, like, shut the fuck up, Seth. We're not going to the hospital. Like, he can do it. He's fine.
Yeah, and I just think too, like it is about the experience as well, and so there's many benefits to still doing it, even if the outcome isn't as great. But I'll probably still be kind of bummed if the outcome isn't great, but it is what it is.
so speaking of injuries, so I
Oh.
went to the gym this morning and
Oh.
it was arm day, and I do like one ab exercise at the end of arm day. And mind you, so yesterday, it's our anniversary as well, Seth. So,
Oh, that's cute.
and so we went out last night for like a date night and did like frisbee golf, and got kind of dehydrated. But anyway, so this morning I was working out arm day. I was on my last exercise between my second and third set, and I was like, it was the ab crunch machine is what I was doing today because the captain or the hanging areas were all taken. Anyways, I was doing that, and I like was resting, fucking around on my phone, and I got this stabbing pain in my ab, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? And it like bent me over, and I looked down, and there's like, it goes like, if you're I'm looking down, and it goes and like inside, and I think it must have been a cramp, like just a really tight cramp.
Oof.
But it was like, I'm like, did I just have a hernia? Is
Hernia,
that what
yeah.
that feels like? And I like limped out of the gym, like just left. And I'm like, oh my god. So that was fun. That was my morning.
Holy fucking
Ouch.
shit.
Well,
I
how's
think
it
it's just a
feeling
really
now?
bad cramp. It's sore right now, but
Oh.
it looks normal again. Like it's tender, but not painful.
It's like Alien
So
versus
weird.
Predator. Like you can feel like busting through. You're like, holy shit! I mean, those kind of ab workouts, though. Sometimes when they hit like that, they do be feeling like some like alien thing's gonna ship. Oh my god, I hate training
It
core.
was just crazy because it was like just like a big mass like sticking out of my abs, and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a Charlie horse in your abs.
Yeah,
Sounds horrible.
essentially.
A stomach ache.
Yeah. Stomach ache, but without the stomach involved.
Right.
Oh
It's
yeah,
very
I guess
strange.
it's true.
You should. Yeah, I mean, I know you drink plenty of water already, but if you don't take magnesium, you might see
I do
if that
take
might help you a
magnesium
bit.
actually.
Okay. Maybe you
Which
need a
kind?
banana. You have some banana in your diet already.
I just had one on my shake, but
Hmm.
I don't know. It feels better now, but it was very weird. I'm hoping it was just like a weird freak thing because I was dehydrated from last night. So
Mm.
Yeah, most likely, I would say. But if it happens again, let me know. Hopefully, it's not a hernia or any type of thing like that. But if it
no,
goes back
it
to
feels
normal,
normal.
okay,
It feels normalish now. Feels fine.
Ish.
ish,
Yeah.
ish. Well,
But yeah, so that was my day so far. And then I smashed my hand open. Yeah, look at
What are you doing over there? We gotta go get this guy. What's happening in Ohio?
It's crazy. Craziness. I can't be left to my own devices. But the weather is nice, Seth, so you can be sad.
Well, now I really want to go to Ohio, man.
well. So, should we dive into the topic
Let's
of,
do it.
of
Let's do it.
masculinity? All right. So, masculinity. I think we kind of originally came to this topic because I don't know if we were just feeling like sometimes we feel as trans men, it's kind of a no-no to kind of present our masculine side, even if it's not like we're trying, because there's such a stigma around toxic masculinity. And I just think we get confused on what is masculinity versus what is toxic masculinity, because everyone has masculine traits, everyone has feminine traits. So I just feel like differentiating between the two could be beneficial. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, I know there's like a lot of talk out there now about what masculinity is and like how it shows up in your life and stuff like that. And um, I don't know about you guys, but I know it was very strange because I'm not like I don't feel like I'm a super masculine person. Like I'm not really an outdoorsman. I don't like cutting meat. My girlfriend trims all of my chicken. Um, I was a vegetarian until very recently. So it was like, not to say that it isn't masculine and whatnot, but I think everybody wants to kind of hate on people who do want to show up looking more masculine, maybe presenting more masculine, and then the gym is a whole nother topic about how
Yeah.
masculinity shows up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost, to use a popular word, code switching. So in environments where I'm talking to people who are maybe, or I know to be part of like the LGBTQ community, right? There's a certain, or you're at a pride festival or something like that, but especially with it about to be June, but then you'll act a certain way there, but then you're probably gonna act different at the gym, or in a more like, or a barber shop down the street. There's going to be at least I find myself kind of donning a different pair of glasses going between, because those are very different places. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think also as you like go through your trans journey, like you go through different stages of like your masculinity, I feel like, cuz at the beginning I feel like I presented a lot differently. I talked a lot differently. Mannerisms were different, and uh, now it's just like I can relax, is what I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same with you guys.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's so many reasons for that, because on one hand it can be like you feel a need to overcompensate for your potentially pre-hormone or early on hormones, uh, physique and facial structure, and you're kind of feeling like, I mean, at least for me, it's like everything I bought had to be like men's this, dudes that, like it couldn't, like, no, it was very like rigid, like a 5-year-old's idea of like firefighter. And I think you see some guys almost like revert to like uh kid stuff almost, because it's like trying to reclaim that thing that you may have missed out on. But anyway, yeah, it was bad. But what about you, Cody?
Yeah. No, I think too, it's like, in the beginning, you definitely have this weird, like, you feel like you have to really be on high alert, with like mannerisms and the way you talk and stuff like that, because I think there's this weird initial thing where you're trying to prove that you are who you are. Whereas now it's like you are who you are, and it still doesn't make everybody happy. And sometimes pieces of who you are, it's like people find problematic or toxic, and you're just like, is it really though? I don't know. Like, I think because with bodybuilding, I think there's this idea that inherently, if you are going after like physique goals, aesthetic goals, or just into building muscle in general, that alone is toxic, because they think that you're doing it to look more like a man. And so I get a lot of comments of being like, you know, you don't have to have muscle to be a man. It's like, cool, I know that. And that's not why I work out. So I guess just kind of like dispelling some of the myths of being like, yo, just because we do X, Y, D, Z doesn't mean we're doing it because we think it makes us more of a man. Or then also like, I have two sides where there's this more, masculine, aggressive sort of traits. But then there's also the other sides where there's like emotion and stuff like that. But I think too, with bodybuilding, what I wanted to point out is, people see that as like probably the most toxic masculinity aspect of any sport, because there's this big dudes, but they're all pretty much teddy bears underneath. Because if you go to the Olympia, how many guys did you see openly crying on stage in front of so many people? So it's just like, even big dudes, just because you're big doesn't mean that you're like against emotions, that you're against, like really self discovery and being aware of things and treating people with kindness. And it isn't always just this like, boxing match of who's more masculine or who's more dominant and stuff like that. But yeah, sorry, I don't know where I'm going
No,
anymore.
yeah, but
But
bodybuilding is,
I would also say that there are people in the community in bodybuilding specifically who are
yes,
for toxic reasons and who do like display problematic behavior. Like, so I just saw Andrew Jack's story yesterday. Do you follow him?
hmm
Dude, I didn't
So,
see anything.
So yesterday in his stories, he was making fun of genders and like sexuality, and it was just like Jesus fucking Christ, guys! Like, did it matter? Did we need to post this? Like, I don't know. And it was just like, so I don't want to say that like there that it's a much like the most evolved sport where everybody is like that. It's not. I do think it's better than it was probably, um, and I think it is better than most people think it to be. But I do think that there are instances where it is rough.
Bodybuilding is the same everywhere across countries. We have agreed upon implicit physique standards. Like there are kids, in the last few weeks, like with Sebum going all around the freaking world. I don't know if you guys been watching. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like it was in India at one
He's
point,
in
and
Rome right now.
yeah, like there's people from all over the world don't even speak the same language, but they recognize his symmetry, his beauty, his size. And in that same way that, someone in India can appreciate Sebum, bodybuilding and bodybuilders are just as diverse as any other group of people. So just like there are beautiful platonic male relationships in bodybuilding that honestly, I think makes some people I don't want to say normie, but outside of the community, like, dang, that's kind of gay. But like, it's not. It's men showing affection for each other, which is healthy and masculine and completely acceptable. So anyway, that's just a long rant for me, basically being like, don't paint with a broad brush. I guess you're both right.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, I think with, Sebum specifically, of course, like, he's a beautiful man, we all know this, but
Gorgeous.
but I think people also admire the discipline. I always say, bodybuilding is the sport of discipline because no one got to the top of bodybuilding without being disciplined or putting in hard work and being consistent with things. So like that's the thing that I admire the most. Like when I see a physique, I don't just see a beautiful physique. I see someone's sweat and blood going into that and how many years it took and all that sort of thing. But I think that's harder for people like outside the bodybuilding community to really picture because their first thing is like, oh, it's the drugs. So that makes me sad. But hopefully with time people will realize. But if you're not in the sport, it's probably harder to get there.
Well, that's the same thing of like, and which I'm sure you've got like women who come up and like, I just want to be toned. I don't want to get bulky and jacked. And I'm like, okay, we're not going to do that.
No.
So it's just that disconnect and like understanding what it takes to be jacked and to be bulky. And that you're probably not going to get there.
Yeah, by all means, pick up the weights that aren't just multicolored rainbow. Like, you're not going to get jacked. If you did, we wouldn't have had to go on hormones. So, like, come on. And just like, there are physical differences between like sexes, and that's just like a cis woman is not going to have, anyway, just going down that rabbit hole, but hormones do different shit. I ain't no doctor, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, well, it's like I lifted some heavy shit and I like busted my ass and ground myself into the ground. And let's just say I got kind of toned, like I didn't even get jacked. I got kind of toned, So pre-transition, it's going to take you a lot of fucking work to even remotely be bulky.
Also, a lot of women are afraid to eat, I think, and that hinders your ability to put on muscle because they're just like, I want to look toned. Like, I mean, if you're going from something that someone might describe as skinny fat, like you're probably going to have to eat at least at maintenance. And I feel like we have to stop telling women to eat 1,200 calories. Shit is fucked up.
I think, women are telling women to eat 1,200 calories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been, we're kind of working our way out of that era. There's always like fads with nutrition and exercise, and they last for years. Like the ramifications are way worse because it's like a game of telephone. It like just keeps going and going. So, the whole like women were always dieting and muscle wasn't the thing. We're still working our way out. We finally got to a point where like strong is sexy, right? And I don't like to say that like because they say like skinny or strong is the new skinny, but at the same time, like some women are just naturally skinny. We don't want to like body shame anybody.
Yeah.
So just like strength is sexy. How about that?
Yeah, I agree. But let's get back to masculinity. So screw the women.
You canceled. You canceled.
that was toxic masculinity right there.
We're gonna throw it in for shits and giggles, and then we're gonna try to describe what exactly that is later.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys? Because in my viewpoint and what I've learned, it feels like a lot of trans men, especially, are very evolved in terms of like what they deem as masculine. But I think also that there's this toxic masculinity that sometimes happens just because it's like I want to prove something
Right.
to someone, and it's usually to cis people or cis men, and I think that is pretty harmful. Do we want to kind of talk about like that and like what that would look like?
Yeah, and also just to add, you know, even women can portray toxic masculinity. So
Good
that's you know,
Just like as trans men. But yeah,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, go for it.
Sorry. So like I know I used to see like a lot of I don't know, just kind of like a lot of fucking hate, and like I needed time to collect my thoughts actually.
No, yeah. To kind of talk about what I think of that, appealing to cis men standards of masculinity, vice trans men's potentially more evolved in general. Truthfully, I think it's a trial by fire, and it depends on the age in which you transition. Because if you went through female puberty, you have been treated like a woman, my friend, and the world stomped on your ass, and in more ways than one, and in ways that made you question reality. Because not only was it oppressive, but you also weren't one. So it's like super multifaceted. And then you come out of that and you're just like, how could I ever treat someone as less than me because of these traits or behaviors? Because you see the way men, and just men period, like now that we can stand in men's spaces, especially early in transition, it shocked me what men will say when there are no women around. That was, and I'm not saying that, I mean, I don't think that's colored every interaction I've had with men by any means, but it's noticeable. It's different from before, and the way you're treated is different. And I think to deny those things, I mean, maybe people have different experiences, but if you transitioned younger and you didn't really get to experience life as like a woman, or a young woman who is developing, like that's hard for anybody, regardless of what you eventually identify as. So anyway, that was my long way of saying I think that's why trans men tend to be more evolved. You got to do your time.
Right. It was like, and we have to take into account that like to move through transition, most of us had to go through therapy as like court mandated. So like if you had someone who was even slightly okay, you had to do a lot of introspection. And so like in my personal opinion, most people belong in therapy or at some point in their life needed therapy.
Yeah.
Or still do.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
Agree.
And I do think that helps to an extent. I think that a lot of men want that acceptance, right? And I think that sometimes the trap that a lot of trans men fall into is like, I want to be one of the guys. I want to feel like one of the guys, and I want it, and they just want what looks like what they've seen in movies and stuff, right? Because like, I don't know, I've recently came across more cis straight friends that are men, and that's kind of like a new development for me. I wasn't friends with a lot of straight cis men before, and it's interesting. It's definitely different. I do think though that it's I could see how it could be very easy to fall into those kind of toxic masculinity traps.
Yes,
Just
dude.
because you're like, oh, I finally am here. Let me not fuck it up. And I think that's probably also my anxiety.
Honestly, talking to you guys has helped me a lot because I've had the inverse experience. Throughout my life, most of my friends have been cis dudes. A lot of them are the same cis dudes that were prior, like to my transition, and that those relationships evolve. But I was always one of the guys. So when it came to be like, uh, well, one, there's stigma around that when you're a young female person, in say high school or something. So that wasn't great. But like moving on into adulthood, it becomes, in our cases, awkward. But the cool thing that I've loved about the friendship between the three of us is I feel like it's taught me that there really isn't that much of a difference between friends. Like if you really know somebody and they're like not shitty and there's not like that element of toxic masculinity, there isn't much of a shift. But it's still like, I think, in my opinion, Kel, I think you'll find in time that it's not too different if they're actually good people. But I mean, that's all other.
I think the baseline is a little different though, because I think men, especially a lot of white men who were not born with a lot of checks and balances. I don't know if that's like a PC way of saying that, but like they
God
try
emperors?
to get away.
Sorry.
They get away with a lot of things. So like talking about like taking off a wedding ring or talking about what a woman looks like. And yes, everybody does that. Everybody thinks that, but I don't know. It sometimes it feels real icky. And like I wouldn't want to hear that about myself, and like I don't feel like that translates as much in the female sense, like in female circles, as much.
Yeah. I think it's just different in female circles. I mean, they definitely do the same type of comments or
Absolutely.
objectifying, but
Yes.
it depends on the group. But generally, it's not as maybe graphic or detailed. But
Painted differently. Yeah.
yeah. But I do notice that women talk more shit about each other behind their backs
Each
than men
other,
do.
yes.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yes.
living on both sides, I'm like, women are so mean to each other. They don't even realize it. I was like, y'all, like, talk about, the man and the toxic masculinity, but you guys are so mean to each other.
So mean to each other.
But like, yeah, so I transitioned. I was working in the kitchen, and the difference between like pre-transition to post, it's like, yeah, they're a lot more comfortable of just saying whatever shit in front of you. I can't say that I was surprised or anything, but it's different, hearing the things that they say. And kitchens are basically the worst
Yeah.
environment, so I still wasn't shocked because I've heard some shit even pre transition, but it's like obviously they get to a point where they don't, or they feel safe with you, or they don't know, and so they just say whatever. They're definitely more guarded, like they don't even cuss in front of you as much if you're like presenting as female, which I find interesting. It's just like I curse like a sailor even as a woman, so I don't know what that was about, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I think when it comes down to like the toxic aspects of it, it might not even be just the words, but it's like the assumed roles of things. I've been married before. I was married to a guy, and I hated the assumed roles essentially. Like I was a fucking army wife, and I couldn't fucking handle it. It was rough. So it's just like when it impacts like your life and like where you are in society or how you live your life, like that's where I find it to be the most problematic. But Yeah, I don't know. I keep not knowing what I'm trying to say.
It's dude, I was just thinking about how as you were saying that, like, it's we can't talk about masculinity without talking about our trans masculinity and that experience of walking between worlds and assessing who do I want to be as a man? What does manhood mean to me? The people, you know, who have had masculine figures in their lives, be it their dad or an uncle or an involved person, if you had something, that person was probably your first experience with what the world taught you should be like the masculine energy in your life. And I think for a lot of us that carries on, like sort of what we view as a man is kind of default, our say our dad. But then as you go along and you know, walking through that paradigm shift that, in my opinion, occurs at least physically when you could very much put on a dress right now and walk outside and then be like, that guy's wearing a dress, and that's fine. He can wear a dress, but prior, you know, it's like that shift when you no longer look like a woman in a dress. Is what I'm trying to say. After that happens, it's like you shift that mindset and you might question, what does it mean to be a man? And I have been trying to answer that question for myself forever.
I think it is kind of interesting though that after you say that, because like I think that I'm probably a weird person to have on this because I didn't grow up with I didn't grow up with like male figures in my life. Like my dad wasn't around, my grandpa wasn't around, I didn't have uncles. I think the first like serious male figure I would have had in my life would be a friend I had, and we ended up being like, it was a very bad ending to our friendship because he essentially is like, you're not a real man. And so I think the next one would probably be Maddie's dad, and I'm already like, the damage is already done. Like I'm already the person I'm gonna be. Yes, there's wiggle room, right? But like I'm kind of like, you can only do so much changing at 35, you know? Like, yes, you can change. I'm not like a terrible person or anything, but like to have my views on manhood and like what it means to be like a man, let alone a good man, is kind of already solidified in my head because I feel like I'm old.
you're not you're not old.
I do have a question though that kind of just popped in my head when you're talking about that is do you find more comfort in just being like, I'm just a man, or do you find more comfort in making the distinction that I'm a trans man? Because um I mean, personally, sometimes I'm like, fuck it, you know, like I'm just a dude, it doesn't matter, like I'm no different. But then other times it's like, especially moments of dysphoria or times where maybe you don't know a social cue because you're new to this, differentiate and being like, I'm still a man, but I'm also like, I'm a trans man, it's different, and that's okay. And like it acknowledges my like trans experience or my, you know, past life, you know, growing up female. Like sometimes that's more comforting to me because it makes it so I don't hold myself to certain expectations. And so it's just like, yeah, like I'm a dude, but you know, like I'm a trans dude. It's okay. I've lived a different life, and I'm, you know, I'm happy to have experienced what I have. And then sometimes I just feel better walking through the world that way. But I don't know how you guys feel.
Kel, did you want to go first?
Sure. I would say I like to own the trans man thing. I especially when I'm thinking about like, because I think that there's things to be proud of and there's things to be not ashamed of, that but like things to be like, yeah, I'm a man, but like I like to think of myself more as like an X-Man version. Like yes, I have all this other cool experience. Like I'm not saying great being growing up as a girl was like fun and something I would love to do again, but like I
Yeah.
also think I learned a fucking lot, and it allows me to empathize with women and with people who are disadvantaged in the society in a way that I don't think you can get otherwise. Like unless you've lived through it, you don't understand. how like your sisters grow up, or how someone who just had like a shit hand dealt to them. And I'm not saying that every woman grows up in this shitty world, but like, or like with a shitty life, but like they have to deal with things that a lot of people don't have to. Like men don't have to. And like I don't know. I don't think I would take it back. So it gives me, I like to own it. I like to say, yeah, that's what I'm from. And like today, I was mentally judging myself, judging someone else at the gym who's uh, a big guy. Like he's a bodybuilder, but he's one of those bodybuilders who uses momentum on everything. So they're like, I'm going to use the whole stack, but I'm going to row with my whole body. And so I hate him. He's my gym nemesis, but it's only in my head.
We all have one.
But I was going back. I'm like, how does he have that how does he have that body when he has such terrible form? And I was just going over and over and over. I'm like, well, he also has like 20 years of testosterone on you. Like, and I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. And it's like, I don't know. I think to answer your question, and this was a very long rant that probably didn't make much sense to say that I like to say that I'm a trans man, and that's how I move through the world. I'm proud of it. I accept it. I like it. I think it's a strength, because I don't think there's not many people stronger than trans people in general. I don't think, to be able to cut into your body and take out things that you don't agree with. That's pretty badass. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, when it totally fucks over the argument when, say, you post something on Instagram and someone types and goes, "You're not a man. Like, you're still not a real man." I'll be like, "Yeah, I'm a trans man."
Yeah.
Where did I say anything else? You know, like, so it gets rid of that whole, like, you're claiming to be something you're not. I was like, I'm literally factually a transgender man.
Yeah, for me, y'all are gonna judge me, and everyone listening is gonna think this dude is a fucking whack job. But I see it as more of a cosmic, not Lovecraftian, but a cosmic comedy, a joke. Hilarious is my experience, where you like wake up in this body where you're like the sentient being. You're like, okay, and then they're telling you to do this and that, and you're like, that this doesn't feel right. And then you go through life confused about this weirdness in you, and then you just embrace it. But it entirely has to come from like you being the driving force. So I feel like there is like that element of being proud of having accomplished something, even if at times it was passive, with hormone treatment or surgery, but just moving through the world, like socially transitioning, like that was probably the biggest piece. But I'm proud of myself for getting through that. That was really rough. I wouldn't want to do that again. That being said, if I had been able to receive treatment when I was younger, I would have benefited from that, I believe. But I can't change that. And I guess I identify with the self-made aspect of it. I don't always align like perfectly politically with the greater trans monolith, and we're just as diverse as any other group of people, and I think people tend to forget that. But I don't know. I think mostly it pops up in my life outside of talking to you guys earnestly about our shared lived experience. With most of my friends, it is just my good joke when I'm stoned and I was like, I don't have a penis. Like stuff like that just gets everybody laughing, and I find it funny, self-deprecation. But just owning it in that way, I guess, and not taking it so seriously has really, over the last few years, protected my ego and psyche from the internet. You can't take it away from me if I well, it doesn't really matter, if this person thinks I'm a man or not. It makes no fucking difference.
Yeah. I think too, like, it kind of helps with the whole, especially when it comes to genitalia and stuff like that, because if you say, like, even, post-phalloplasty, I'll have moments of dysphoria because obviously there's still differences. But when I tell myself, dude, it's cool, it's like, it's a trans penis, it's fine, so like there's trans genitalia and then there's, cis genitalia. But I think it helps to like have us become more comfortable with our own bodies and just accept it because we are trans. I think when we try to deny being trans, that's when dysphoria gets really bad, because you start to compare yourself to cis guys and you're like, oh, it doesn't look like that, or I don't look like that. But it's just like, if look maybe at other trans guys, even that comparison can be bad. But or even how far you've come, and you're like, damn, I was looking real female over there, now not so much. So like, that's, I feel like, where it comes in the most handy. So instead of just trying to be like, I'm a man, damn it, I'm a man, like, if you have to say it that hard, it's probably you're trying too hard.
Yeah, it is funny though, because I was a part of a project 2 summers ago, last summer, I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. But it was called Transvisibility. Shout out to Emma Parker. She's an amazing photographer who was part of this, who did this project. But they asked me, it was like a photo shoot thing, and then like an interview essentially. And they asked me, like, what does being visible as a trans person mean to you? And to me, like, I like to switch that around, because I personally, especially with how this world is moving, everything is going more individualized. There's not two people, men, women, that aren't related, who are going to have the same experience or even the same looking body. Like, with how much variation there is in genitalia and in other parts of your body, like, and all the things that you can do to change it, like all the modifications that you can get, like piercings, tattoos, like everybody doesn't look the same anymore. And it's just like, so for me to be trans and visible means like that's the least interesting part of me, and that's how I've always kind of stood on it. I'm like, I'm just a person, like it doesn't matter. Like, and I know that's not really the conversation that we're trying to have today, but
No, it's part of it.
I feel like it ties in a little bit, and is like, yeah, being visible also, like, to me, is like the ability to be invisible. Like I don't want it to be the main billboard on me, like the trans person. And like, we all know someone who's like so into pride that like they wear a pride shirt for everything, and it's like, that's just
every day.
Like, those people though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, that's just not me, and like, I just want to be me, like, and
right.
It's just one very small part. Like, how often does having like a penis really affect your day to day? Like, unless it, like, I don't know.
Starts to think about it too hard.
It's like,
I guess it depends on how much you have sex, is where I was going. But like, I don't know. It's just frustrating to me, because it's like everybody wants to talk about all the differences, and that's all we ever want to talk about, is the difference between us and them, and to women and men, and gender non-conforming versus non-binary. I don't really understand. Like, there's all these different terms, all these subcategories, and it's just like, it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, I think that all these subcategories exist because we have such a problem with our differences. It's just like, it's okay to be different. If you keep creating new categories of like where you fit, then we're kind of just like, it's the opposite of fuck the gender norms. It's enforcing them, because it's like, oh, I am slightly masculine, I don't like wearing girls' clothes, I'm non-binary. It's like, no, that's just what you like. Why are we creating all of these different categories? It's just like, be your fucking self.
Yeah,
there you go.
Gender isn't a costume.
Like, the more categories that there are, it's like the less people that are in the categories, which means we're siloing ourselves off to each other. And I feel like nothing ever good happens when you're so siloed that you can't even touch each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. So we got to just stick together. No.
Stick together. The three white guys. What could go wrong?
We're gonna stay in our house, actually, and you're not allowed to be there.
I just think, as a trans guy, sometimes I think about, like, I've still had, predominantly female friends or whatever, and sometimes I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird, it's not normal, but I'm like, I'm a trans guy, so fuck it, it's normal to me. Like, I don't I mean, I have like a cis brother, but I don't have like cis male friends. So I could be like, oh, I'm not a man. I don't have cis male friends. But it's all comes down to, like, well, why do I need to overly focus on that? Like, you got to focus on where you're happy and who, like, if you have good relationships with the people in your life, that's all that fucking matters. You don't have to go. It's like that show, I Love You, Man, where he has no friends. But like, there are cis dudes that don't have male friends either. It just really depends on like where you fall. Sometimes I feel like that guy, but not really.
I mean, I feel like until very recently, I had the exact same thing. Almost all my friends were lesbians, and it became a real problem for me just because, like, then everybody would. And hear me out. It did become a problem because everybody referred to me as a lesbian, and that made me livid. And
Yeah.
so that was problematic. But now, like, I think I have a very diverse group of friends, which is really fun. It's like probably the most diverse I've ever had in terms of like, oh, I'm the oldest, but in terms of like ethnicities, in terms of age, in terms of gender expression, sexuality, which it's pretty fun to kind of be able to like kind of move through these groups differently. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know where that was going.
No, I think you touched on something there because we, you might just from the initial phenotype readout you almost get after looking at somebody and making like this list of assumptions in your head about that person. You can turn around and then have a conversation and treat each other like equals and come to find that you have so much in common. Things that actually fucking matter. And while, there can be some shared camaraderie and, shared heritage or shared ethnicity, like or even just some shared hobbies, what it really drills down to is care between people is innately human.
Right, and like I have one friend who is and he was like, he's a cis guy, but he played professional rugby, and so he knows like all of these people from everywhere, right? And it's like to, and that's, sorry, I'm linking this back somewhere, but that's to me one of the goalposts of why it's super important to be involved in athletics and be involved in sports, because you get those like exposures, right? Because like for me, like I grew up in a podunk farm town, so like all of the people were me. No, not trans, but like white, lower middle class
I was the only person
families,
who lived in the town.
and but you know what I mean. Like you get to like experience like this huge swath of people and learn how to work together. So I think that I just had to make a little plug. So
No, yeah, it's
for the
crazy.
importance of sports and being involved.
It's crazy how much the Midwest has diversified in some areas, but not in others. Because I was in Wisconsin a couple of years ago, and I got off the plane and I was walking in like downtown Madison, and I looked around and I looked at my wife and I went, this is what Hitler wanted. Like, I swear to fucking God, I was like, I feel like unsettled. Like, I feel like someone could be like, what is that at me at any point, because I wasn't, like 6 feet tall and blonde. Like, it was like that. Whereas, like in Columbus, I didn't get that vibe from Columbus. It was definitely more diverse, but two different places. But yeah, it's anyway, that didn't really add anything.
This is kind of bringing us back to the masculinity conversation. But I when I used to travel a lot, I always went to breweries. That was where I spent all of my work money at dinners and stuff. But I was in Amarillo, Texas, and I can remember the day because I got in a bar fight. Well, kind of. I got in an argument at a bar, and he stood up, and the bartender took him out. But it was when I first started passing, and it was like so exciting. and and I remember this guy, I was sitting at the bar eating, and this guy was sitting at the bar eating, and he's like, "Can you believe that woman is running for president?" And it was Hillary Clinton. And he had all these thoughts about Hillary Clinton that he had to share with me. And I, for a very long time, have been a fan of Hillary Clinton. I'm not prepared to comment on that. But and I have no ability to shut my fucking mouth. And I'm like, actually, I think she would be a great president. And
Oh
he's
man.
like, and so it went down this terrible hole, and he got pissed, and I was pissed, and then he got kicked out of the brewery.
Oh, that's hilarious.
In
Oh
Amarillo,
man.
Texas. I did not pick a good spot. I was alone.
No.
I was traveling alone. I didn't know anybody else in Texas.
I don't know why that is like almost like Michael Scott energy. Like, yeah, got in a bar fight. It was over Hillary Clinton. Little Miss Hillary from Jesus Christ, Cal. That is so fucking funny.
Toxic masculinity.
Hillary Clinton would be a great president. Oh man. Oh man.
Oh, thank you, Cal. Thank you.
I think too, it reminds me, this is a little bit off topic, but when, pre-transition, I felt the need to hide my masculinity and try to like repress it, suppress it. And then it was finally when I started to like, when I came out as a lesbian, then it started coming out. I was able to like let it out more naturally. And then when I transitioned, I just felt like I was at home. Like I could just live and go through life without like trying to just suppress anything, but I was also like no longer religious, so that could be a huge piece of it. So like, man, I have suppressed some shit. So like being able to just be myself and be okay with the feminine and masculine aspects of life has been so fucking so much better, but it is funny how it's just like, I don't know, when it comes to gender and all that stuff, obviously we're making strides and just not giving a fuck anymore of like what roles mean and stuff like that. That being said, like feminine and masculine energy exists in everybody, so that's not something I ever feel we need to just like go extinct off the face of the earth. Like I still think that it's cool to celebrate both aspects, and there's women who very much are like super feminine, but that's how they are and they love it, and everyone whatever, like whenever someone is happy with however they want to express themselves with femininity, masculinity, whatever, I think that's like the main goal. It's just like whatever you're feeling, sweet, do it.
Yeah,
I think
dude.
when we try too hard, that's it gets to be problematic.
Because that's one of my number one biggest pet peeve is whenever you're happy and excited about something and someone shits on it and like stealing joy. And I think that's exactly what you like, basically what you said. Like, why fucking steal someone else's joy? But
Yeah.
I have a question for you too. What, before transitioning, what was like the thing that you were trying to suppress that was like more masculine? Were you trying to do like, what was the one thing that you can think of?
Oh my god, I'm just thinking about the immediate thing that came to mind was even because oh my god, I'm sorry, that just like hit me with all these memories, but holy shit. There was a short period of time in my life where I was just dressing as I wanted, that in between place of like prepubescence into like true puberty, where I was wearing exactly what the fuck I wanted. And even with long hair, I managed to get mistaken for a dude all the time.
Same.
To the point that it was like, and I remember like when my parents, they were like, fine, they let me continue buying boys' clothes. And I remember looking in the mirror and being like, holy shit, I'm fucking dripping. This drip, this fresh, this, I'm looking like confident as fuck. So going into school one day, and I was like a new middle school, and I was new kid it's at school like after first semester, and immediately the bullying was so bad that I wanted to kill myself because people were like, what the fuck is that? And before too long I went into a hyper feminine, early high school. I was, no, you wouldn't have caught me looking any kind of masculine, boyish way, because it terrified me because there were kids who literally threatened my life because of what I looked like. So that shit got buried until much later. But what was the question? I feel like I just got buried in that like flashback.
What was like one thing that you suppressed that you could like let run? One masculine thing that you like suppressed?
I guess at all, but clothing specifically, I think.
What about you, Cody?
That would be a big one, I think, too, because it all started, my mom kind of started poking at me a little bit, depending on shoe choice, color choice, stuff like that. I remember going shopping for shoes, and she wouldn't let me buy black shoes because she said they were lesbian shoes. So, like,
That's a lesbian shoe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like, from then on out, I kind of paid more attention to, even if it was, like, a dude's clothing or whatever, if it had like lighter colors on it, maybe a little bit of pink, I was like, we're good, no one's gonna suspect anything. But I feel like also generally, like, even the fucking way I would walk or talk or present myself, I feel like even that I was super aware of and feeling really, really self-conscious just every step of my life. Like, it was just like I felt like eyes were on me all the time, that someone was going to find out. And there was one other instance where I was playing one-on-one basketball with my best friend's sister. And like, I think I was trying to teach her how to like dribble between her legs or something along those lines. And I was showing her, and then she did it, and she's like that. And then like her mom was there, and then she said something along the lines of how I did it smoother. And in my brain, I was like, I kind of like knew exactly what that meant in a way. It's just like I played like a boy, and it was like from then on out, I was so nervous about how I was perceived with just like my body language and stuff like that. Because there's always that like, oh, she walks like a man, So I was always nervous about getting those comments. So yeah, now I'm like, I can walk however the fuck I want. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to cross my legs. I was never a leg crosser, like.
But dude, isn't it weird that like you understood what those male cues were because you were already doing them as you naturally were without external, like that conscious moment of being like, this is how I'm supposed to act. You were behaving in a masculine way. It wasn't until you felt that pressure when you sort of like come into your mind, I guess, and you're like, oh, other people are perceiving me, that you're like, this isn't the way I should be acting. And then you spend years programming yourself into female cues and shit. And then now as an adult, you're like, oh. It's like when people tried to teach people to be right-handed instead of left. Like, you knew what you were.
Yeah.
I remember, because clothes as well for me. So I had a cousin who was like 7 years older than me. He was a boy. He was like the only boy in our family. And I got all of his hand-me-downs because we were very broke. And that was hell.
You're like, oh, darn.
Awesome. I was like so stoked about it. But I specifically, so my thing when I was young, it was like, and I'm sure you guys had similar childhoods, but like I was outside all the time, and like you came home when the streetlights came on. And so like my parents never knew where I was, so it wasn't like a big thing, but I just dressed for comfort. So I just wear like shorts and nothing, and then a hat. And that was like my running around the neighborhood look. And I always got these like black dad hats, like baseball caps. And I put my ponytail through the hole in the back. And I remember, but I was always like super shy when I was young. So I never looked people in the eye, like never like looked up essentially. And so like I got called boy all the time. And like I remember my mom we were at somewhere, and the jewelry or the person was like, that is the quietest little boy. And I remember my mom ripped my hat off of my head, and I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to wear hats again. Thanks, lady.
You're like, Mom, no. Blew my cover.
So like that was, I just remember hats being really like a specific thing for me. It was like I wasn't allowed to wear hats. And so like when I first came out, I just remember buying like all the hats.
Dude, I did the same. That's so funny. Yeah, because like it's like baseball caps are male coded or whatever. I wasn't really allowed to wear them either. Like we would have like some caps that they were clearly women's hats, you know. But like just a regular ass baseball, or even like I went through my "we shall not speak of it" snapback phase. Those do not work for my facial shape. But I was in
They
denial
don't
of
work
it.
for me either.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
look. I look like a little kid, little cherub. It's okay.
I
Well,
think
now I'm even more sad. Don't say it.
No. I have to say, I'm sorry. I think it's a trans issue. We have small heads.
I'll have you know that this shit could barely fit in a helmet. It's the skull. Yeah, it's like skulls are
we
smaller.
have smaller heads, so it just generally looks like we are children if we wear them. So it's
Little
unfortunate.
hobbits. Hobbits.
Dad hats are okay though.
Yeah, deadheads.
So I hold to the trucker hat. I am a trucker hat person. It's the Grove City in me. I think it's the hillbilly, but I
respect it.
really like the ones with the plastic mesh on the back.
Yeah, they breathe real good. I look terrible in them, but they do look cool. And they're in right now, too.
I don't know. I have to look real hard to find them usually.
Really? Oh, wait, I just said they're in right now and I live in the South. Like, of course I think
So they're
in right
always
now.
they're always in.
They
Yeah.
never left.
Yeah, they never did leave. They're from here. They're from around here.
But luckily, so I was a little fat kid, so like clothes weren't ever a thing for me. Like, so I never got super stoked about clothes because that means you have to try them on, which means it's not going to fit right, and it's not fun. But I was really into sneakers. Like, so I was the first kid who in my high school who had Shocks. Do you guys remember those?
Oh fuck yeah, Nike Shocks.
It was my birthday present for 1 year. It's like the only thing I asked for, and I remember some girl making fun of me so much because she's like, only lesbians wear shorts when tennis shoes. And,
The Mormon Church is calling.
and I just remember I'm like, I was so excited about these, and they were like really expensive when they first came out, and I'm like, I have to keep wearing these, and it was like a really big conundrum in my head.
Did you ever
I
have
only have 2 pairs of shoes.
So I did used to, sorry, this just came when you said that, but like I did have a friend in high school who was a guy. Did you ever have friends who continuously tried to change you? My female friends as well. I was a project, right? It was like, we're going to make you look like a girl someday. Or,
Like, she's all that? Someone she's all thatted you?
yeah. My friends would always try that, with the exception of a couple of my friends, but they're, guy friends, girlfriends, like they're like, you should shave your arms, you should wear tighter clothing, or you should wear a tank top or something. It was like, maybe we'll get you to look like a girl someday. Like that was always a thing. My friends, everyone was always trying to just push me to be more feminine. It was just like they couldn't handle it.
I definitely,
mom did.
Yeah, mother.
My mom did that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, not friends, because I really didn't. I mean, I guess I did have some feminine friends, but not to like out anybody, but I feel like I almost became like a boy light for some of these girls, like, for them to kind of, not going into detail on here, but basically that was more my experience. And then on the other hand, I feel like some of the guys, no longer friends with these particular guys, but it's like if you're one of the boys for so long and then all of a sudden it's like they realize you're a girl, that becomes a problem, because then depending on what kind of person they are, they might decide that they should proposition your ass, because they're like, oh yeah, you're a girl, and you're like, actually, well, I mean, at the time I identified as one, but it's just so to answer your question, no. Though I am sorry that happened to you. I can't say I like either one. Like hearing that, I'm like, can't say I'd want to do that, but I didn't want mine either. So
I didn't have that experience, but I didn't have a ton of friends like that, so like it was just my mom.
Yeah, well, it's just like, too, if you think about how we said, like, what did we suppress as far as masculinity goes? If you think about, what point in your life did you realize that like gaydar was a thing, in the sense of you could easily spot someone who is similar to you and you're like felt not alone in that moment, and you almost felt like you wanted to like be their friend, but at the same time you kind of wanted to like be the furthest from them as possible, because you're like, I don't want to be the same as them, because then people will also perceive me as that. Because, you know, when it comes to gaydar, there's, you know, people can argue it exists or it doesn't. But really, I think it's just being really perceptive on finding likeness to yourself. So I can spot it pretty quickly.
Birds of a feather.
Mannerisms, mostly like mannerisms, and just how the person's interacts with the world can be a giveaway on its own. I don't know where I'm going with that either, but I don't know if you guys agree on any point.
No, so I did that a lot, but a lot more when I was in college, like as a lesbian. Like it was because like not everybody was out.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, and like so for me, it was. I'm gonna go back to the X-Men thing, and it's like I feel like it's almost like we're forced to evolve like these like different types of perception, and like because no one would notice that other than the people who are also doing it, you know what I mean? And it was like, so in order to stay safe and to be able to like stay in the population, you like you perceive things differently, and you kind of like sharpen that tool. So I don't know, that's
yeah,
why I think.
No, anybody in like the LGBT, like I think we all kind of, even though we're again just as diverse as anybody else, there is that shared sense of like you're a safe person, and I think that's why you see like a lot of times kids, you know, that social contagion argument. I think it's multifaceted, but the biggest factor being they know each other. They just know each other because you just see it, and then you have something in common, and then you have a friend, and it might not have anything to do with that aspect of yourself, but they just basically highlighted themselves as a safe person. Potentially, maybe not, but you know.
Yeah. I think it's. I think also with being trans, I don't know if you guys experience this. I wouldn't say it's necessarily guilt per se, but sometimes you feel like you're looked down on for now being kind of like this cis white passing dude, moving throughout the world. Or there's just kind of this stigma around it in general, to the point where sometimes I feel like some people might try to be more feminine, or that's why they wear pride flags 24/7, is because they actually don't feel comfortable in that, you know, role, or they don't feel comfortable passing, because they still want to kind of keep some camaraderie within the community or something along those lines. Like, I don't know. These are just pure thoughts diarrheaing out of my mouth right now. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Oh, okay.
It was really painful for me, I think, when I first realized like I'm a straight white guy now. It was like I'm not, and I know it sounds like funny, but like it at first it felt like, because I don't know, I got to a point when I was a lesbian, like of I am fucking badass, like fuck with me, I dare you, and it was like I know I thought I knew who I was. I thought I knew everything, and I was okay with you being able to see it all on me, like on the outside. And I'm like, now it feels like our whole stories are pushed down, you know what I mean, and inside, and it is a little terrifying. Like I don't want to be associated with like Trumpers, and like I like blast country music out of my truck all the time, and it's like
if a shoe fits,
I know, and so I do struggle with that a little bit.
Kel, what you said cut me deep, man, because that's so many of us go from being very visible in the like a masculine lesbian, like I was stared at, you know, especially where I'm from, and because you know I looked like a butch lesbian because that's what I fucking was, but then you know, and I found my masculinity in that place. You know, that was me accepting that part of myself, gender or not. Like masculinity is separate from gender in this sense, and we've said it multiple times through this last hour. But when I shifted into being, you know, truly who I believe myself to be, a trans man, it's like that aspect of me softened and I felt like I didn't have to dig so deeply into it. But at the same time, you feel grief because if your politics align with it, you've just become the enemy. You've just become the worst fucking thing you could be, the thing that you would sneer at in college. You have become. And you have
The
to
people that you avoid.
the people you avoid. And then you know what it does? It forces you to reevaluate what it means to look at a white man. And while, yes, there are lots of us that suck, we started all the wars, but we are. So how can we paint such a broad stroke to a group of people, just like we shouldn't to anybody? But we can still acknowledge historical precedent and inequalities and inequities without saying, you white bad man, bad, period. And I don't know. I think it forces you to have a broader perspective. I think that's all I was trying to say.
And I think if you're afraid that someone's going to put that shoe on you, you know, like make that judgment, it's probably because you're making that judgment. For
Exactly.
It's 100% true, and it's not something that I loved about myself, but I was like a flaming red hot liberal in my lesbian day.
Same.
I think most of us probably were.
Right? And it was just like, it was like that shell that you put on to, like, if I'm saying it, you can't say it to me, or almost, right? And then now I saw a comedian, it was a trans comedian the other day on TikTok that was like, and it was exactly that quote essentially that you said, Seth. It was like, sometimes you live long enough to become a man.
Yeah.
And it's just funny, but I think that's what made me understand the visibility thing. Like, none of us are fucking the same. None of us had the same points of view, and we don't have the same lived experience. None of us. And I think that needs to be understood more. And I feel like we're just cutting people off at the legs because we're not giving them the chance to even say anything before we're like, fuck you.
No, I think being trans, because you do have many walks in life, it like forces you to have a deeper sense of empathy, because you've literally walked in, you know, like the other gender's shoes. You know, we've walked the world being perceived as female. We know what it's like, you know, the pluses and minuses, what it's like living, you know, as a female. And then, you know, we've also lived in the world of being perceived as male, and that comes with its ups and downs too. You know, like being perceived male isn't always the best. People are harder on you. You know, like when I was working in the kitchen, you know, we got a new boss, didn't know I was trans. So it was like post transition and everything. Definitely, it was harder on me as a male than female. Whereas female, you know, he never yelled at the women. So it is a different perspective. I still think that there's more room for empathy too with even the white cis males, because you know, I can't imagine myself, you know, actually having more of a I guess I definitely feel less inclined to share things like feelings and stuff like that if it was this, you know, cis guy that I was talking to maybe at the gym or something along those lines. And in the same sense, like, this is really weird, but I've been watching this stupid ass chick flick show, Firefly Lane, where it's like about these two best friends. It's like women's relationships, friendships are also very different in that they get together just to like talk and share emotions, or they fucking cuddle. It's bizarre sometimes, but with men, it's like you have to be doing an activity. There's not just like, hey, you want to like hang out and talk about our feelings? Like, that's not a thing. It's like, you want to go hunting and then you talk about your fucking feelings in an obscure way.
Golf.
But yeah, golf, exactly. So
Feel called out.
There's just like such you know, there's differences, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but it's just like there's two sides, right? There's each side has its difficulties. There's some shit that men have that it's harder there just because there's certain expectations of you, and there's harder part with women because there's certain expectations, and you know, society holds both genders kind of different standards depending what it is. So it's just like, I like that I get to know what it's like to have walked both sides. And I know, like as like a cis passing white male, um, like I might have been that person who judged them previously, and now that I am kind of walking the earth in those shoes, I know to have deeper empathy, or find different perspectives and not judge someone just literally based off of what they look like or what kind of music they listen to, because it could mean so many different things. People are much deeper than we think for the most part. Not everybody, but
Yeah.
Good caveat. I think one of the most heartbreaking things, though, that I experienced after I transitioned, in terms of like kind of feeling like you lost part of your femininity, like the part that I missed the most, I suppose, was like the first time I was walking outside, like in the streets, and like it was dark, and a woman, like I could tell I scared someone, and like just from like being around and like, or too close, because like that wasn't something that came off the top of my head, was like, oh, I'm too close to this lady, I'm gonna scare her, because I have a shaved head and am bigger now, and that does bum me out sometimes. And so,
Kel, I swear to God, like through this, like you too, Cody, but just because of this line, like I feel like we've been on the same fucking wavelength with this, because I was about to open my mouth and say that was one of the hardest fucking things for me. One of them being not too long ago, a friend and I were walking down the street, and there was a woman in front of us, and I just got this bad feeling, and I was like, dude, slow down. And he was like, what, why? And I was like, we are like running up on this woman, like, and we are scaring her. And I wanted to go home and cry. Like, honestly, because, and even yesterday when I was telling you guys, that potentially could have been a really bad dog attack occurred, I was walking around stoned out of my fucking mind with noise canceling headphones on and no glasses. Okay, that is male fucking privilege, okay? Because I never would have done that shit 10 years ago. I would have, no headphones, or at least one ear out, glasses on so I can fucking see. No, just blind as a bat, can't hear shit, and slow reaction time. Recipe for disaster. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, now they're even making those headphones that, have you seen those, Cody? With how much you used to run, those ones that like sit right here.
Oh, the bone conducting?
The bone ones.
Oh yeah, I have seen those. It's crazy.
For women's safety, for running.
Yeah, it's fucking heartbreaking. And that's where a part of my hatred of...
Yeah, I used to run, but I was always very aware of my surroundings. My music, if I had it, it was low, so I could still hear. But I used to run through this field where there was a lot of homeless camps and a lot of shit went down. But I used to run through it anyways because I loved it and it was the fastest way to get to where I wanted to go. But I know I was always on high alert all the time. And then I was running through it post-transition. I'm still on high alert, but then in my brain, I was like, that's kind of funny. I don't think I have to worry anymore because there's always a chance to be assaulted, whether it's trying to steal my shit just for money.
Not with those shoulders.
But, the chance of being like sexually assaulted is exponentially lower. So that was the part where I was like, damn, that's crazy. Like, I still worry about it because I forget. I still haven't caught up to my body, but there's still moments where even when I am by myself walking and I might be like walking, there's a guy coming this way, I'm walking towards him, I still get uneasy. I still clench up and I start to like get nervous and I might like create a little bit more space. It's not because I see myself as a woman. It's just like, I'm a small guy. Who knows? Like I still I get that response in my body.
He's delusional, Cal. He's delusional. He's fucking walking fridge, and he's like, I'm just a little man. I'm like, that dude was probably scared of you.
Oh my god!
You're like, it's like the spider.
Is there anything that you guys feel like that's female coded that you miss now that you're trans, or you're?
That's a good question. Hold on.
I'll tell you mine while you
go. Women's restrooms! Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, clean restroom. That's fair. 100%. This is a tangent that is not what anybody asked for, but there's poop currently on the outside of the wall in the stall in the gym right now. like that's been there for like a week.
Jesus.
I wouldn't
Why?
want to clean it up either. The
I'm not
janitor's
PC.
like, fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit.
But I think the thing I miss most is being able to give people compliments without them thinking that there's something behind it. Like, so I heard this thing a couple of years ago that was like, don't ever let a good thought go to waste. So like if you see someone and you're like, oh, they look great today, or like those are really dope shoes, like to just be able to like, hey man, those shoes are awesome. Like sometimes like I've gotten a lot of like bad experiences. Like people are like dicks or like, what do you want? And I'm like, man, no one did this when I was a girl.
Yeah, people think you have ulterior motives.
That's weird. I never
Can't
compliment
compliment
anyone,
people.
so okay.
I know.
Oh, Seth, I compliment you.
I'm just kidding.
You fish real hard.
I'm a fragile little man. What can I say?
Oh man. But yeah, that's
This probably needs
not
to be 2
something.
parts.
Yeah, right. We're almost at. We're at an hour and 20. We probably should have just done a whole episode on like the differences between men and women.
It'll be a bigger
We can
series.
make this not our first episode because I think also another fun one would be Boyhood.
I think we can
Yeah.
just have this be, we'll decide when it's over, when the conversation, in meaning episodes, like if you want to continue.
Yeah. Wait, sorry. What was the question that you asked again, Cal,
Do you
about like
miss
what we
anything?
missed?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so. I think it is, kind of like I don't know that I miss anything. Actually,
Not even women's restrooms?
No, because those are awful sometimes too, man. Like
Never
women
seen
aren't
it.
that clean either.
I don't know. Maybe
There's
it's
probably not shit on the wall.
Maybe that's just your gym though. That's yeah. I don't know. How about you, Seth?
women's restrooms was my answer. What was yours, Cal? Was
Oh.
it also women's restrooms? No, wait, you just said it. No, I'm so sorry. I was so scarred by your poop story that I was like, and then when you said and then
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, God,
hair.
yeah, but not enough to like cry about it. I don't know.
Same. No use.
I mean, I
No,
guess
this is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would just say I would probably miss kind of like the closeness of those like female friendships. But I'm dating my best friend now, so like it's fine.
Cute.
Have you seen those things where you can get a fade tattooed on your head?
That's foul.
Yeah,
I want to see. Oh wait, yeah, I do know. I have seen it.
You could
Like,
also,
it's
yeah,
medical tattooing.
yeah. It actually looks pretty good. I wouldn't put
It
it
looks
past
like
myself.
this.
Yeah, and then you could get like the receding hairline kind of filled in, so it looks like you have hair even though you shave it still.
What receding hairline?
You can just get your whole head.
You don't have a hairline.
No, this shit. No, you can't see it in this light, but it does wrap around the crown. It's like there is hair here, but there's not enough, So I just look like poof,
Yeah.
and then this will be really short forever. Fuck
I
that.
do wish I had a little bit more time with my hair, most definitely.
Especially now that it's curly.
I know. I could have had so much more fun with it. I'm just kidding.
Easy,
But,
breezy, beautiful. Man, it's too good.
So, if there was, I mean, obviously, white men are powerful, but they're not that powerful because they still haven't fucking figured out how to grow hair back. So,
Yeah, what gives?
someday.
But a real penis first. Cool. Thanks, Santa.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be great.
That's my order. Okay, check it off.
Well, should we wrap it up and go into the power talk since we kind of are all over the fucking place?
Yeah, tune in next week for a continuation of this, probably, unless someone
Maybe.
vetoes. Cody's like, we're not talking about this shit again. Anyway, so this is from, I swear to God, if I'm saying this wrong, it'll be really embarrassing, but Greek philosopher, Stoic Greek philosopher. I think he was Greek. Oh shit! Oh no, I forgot to make the right note. Seneca. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. And I know we talked a lot about like the toxicity around men feeling the need to prove themselves to other men, but I think that Seneca's tome or whatever speaks beyond that into the larger lived experience of facing obstacles head on with courage and bravery and thinking outside of yourself, I think, is masculinity. And you can say that, I think, and have that, not be universally agreed upon, but that's kind of part of the beauty of it too, because women can also display that trait. It's not just for men, but it is an aspect of what I see as masculinity, is independence and the ability to overcome.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Weird.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Cool.
Cool.
We just reverted back to our female selves.
Oh my god, that was so funny. This bitch was no, shut the fuck up.
We're canceled now. Oh my gosh, there was this girl that I came across, and I told her that she was like wearing the cutest dress, but oh my god, it was so hideous. I not sure where she got it. Probably Goodwill, because she has no money.
We will be in character next week. It'll be the gals. The gals of the lab. We're gonna make up our own wigs. Would be funny,
We're canceled for sure. No one's listening anymore.
All 7 of you.
All right, that's it.
Until next time.
Until next time. Peace out.
Peace.